All right, I am Ted King, co-founder of UnTapped, depending on the time of year, sometimes professional cyclist, and I wanted to sit down, bring this group of people together because we happen to be in a similar geography. We are here in Vermont. In particular, we're in Ian Boswell's barn, so please pardon the acoustics depending on how things go. But given our shared geography, I thought it'd be really fun and interesting to sit down with some really special athletes and talk nutrition as much as anything, but really just pick each other's brain about all factors of each of our areas of expertise. So, quick introductions. On my right, Ryan Cochran-Siegle, fresh off Winter Olympics, a successful Winter Olympics. Let me see if I've done my homework well. Third Olympics.
Yep.
Won your second Olympic medal.
Yep.
Going all the way back in time, two-time world junior champion.
Yeah.
I mean, I was checking out your accolades. You got some good ones. Ryan Cochran-Siegle. Ian Boswell, person I'm more closely acquainted, having raced with him, against him, shared plenty of time in a peloton together. Tour de France cyclist. I like to say stage winner in a Grand Tour. You guys won a TTT.
Yeah.
Winner of Unbound more recently, and podium a couple times in Unbound. So thank you for opening up your barn. Ben Ogden, I like to say, correct me how I phrase this, the most successful Olympic male Nordic skier in Olympic history from America.
The last part was key.
Last part is key. Yeah. Under 6 feet. No, that sounds about right.
But also, two-time junior world champion. Mm-hmm. 2 Olympic medals to your name, having come back from a successful Winter Olympics. Basically, I wanted to bring this group together. You know, we've got a lot of interesting bits of insight from our various different sports, and through the lens of nutrition, just really pick each other's brains. So, given that is the most recent thing, coming back from the Olympics, talk about, beginning here with Ryan, how do the Olympics look different than, call it a traditional competition weekend?
Yeah. Well, this time around, like being in the third Olympics, I think everyone's unique. And this time, the only difference I think was just that the banners had the Olympic logo instead of sponsors for World Cup, because the venue was in Bormio for the men, which is a World Cup we go to every single year. And I feel like the crowd and all that, obviously there's a bigger picture, but our village was just like pretty much men's alpine. There were some ski mountaineers, but it was like, I honestly never met except for the 2 American athletes. And so it was just like, it felt like a World Cup, which for me, that's like great. Like in a way I feel less pressure. But yeah, it was a cool event. I don't know, I feel like there's like backstory into my game specifically, but I obviously want to like share the love with Ben's.
Sure.
Too.
Jump on over. How do the Olympics feel different than any other?
For me, it was similar as well. Like we were at a venue where we race every single year, and the courses were a little bit different, and the championship always has a bit of a heightened feel. And for us Nordic skiers, our first competition is on day 1 of the Olympics, and our last competition is on the last day of the Olympics. So that's also a very different thing than your standard World Cup or any other event that we do. So it's really like we settled into one zone for 3.5 weeks, and got into a routine, but also with it being the Olympics, it was a little bit harder to get into that routine because, everything was more media, more security, more. So it was tough to make it feel like super natural and super easy, but much more so than Beijing, which, like Ryan, I think really worked to my strengths. Mm-hmm. Or helped with my success.
How about going down the direction of nutrition? Does something of the Olympics caliber change your nutrition strategy, or do you try to keep it as routine as possible?
I think, like, my perspective is always, like, you work really hard, whether it's the Olympics or World Cup, like, with this kind of goal, this overseeing goal, and the more that you can keep it simplified and like steady, consistent, I feel like the better off you are. So for me, it's like I try to go into the Olympics not changing as much as possible because there's a lot going on as well. And so nutritionally, I was just like, I have the same kind of regimen and thought process with how to fuel, how to, recover, and just keeping that steady through whatever's going that way. And I think it is like alpine skiing, with the 2-minute effort at max. So the recovery side of things is way, way different than a lot of, especially endurance-wise.
Mm-hmm. I've gotten into skiing. Skiing kills my legs. Like,
speak for yourself. For me, I'm sore for a week after I ski for 2 minutes. So,
Yeah.
But I would say the same. I mean, honestly, we always joke within our team that, the response and the feedback that we get from the coaches and the staff is always like so much more around championships and like around these bigger events. So it'll feel like, oh, we need to do all this crazy nutrition, all this track, all this stuff that we never do. Mm-hmm. But we always joke with it as athletes because really the Olympics and World Championships are a much smaller load on the body than a lot of other weekends. Like every other weekend of the year, we race 3 times, back to back to back, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And, it'll often be, a good weekend would be a sprint on Friday where you go hopefully to the final, 4 hard 3-minute efforts. And then the next day you got a 10 or a 15K, and then the day after that you got a 20 or a 30K. So it's like, again, by cycling standards, it's low hours, but it's a heavy impact on the body. So those are the weekends that I feel like you really need to prioritize nutrition.
Yeah.
But the feedback that we get from the staff and, from coaches and stuff is always heightened around the Olympics, even though at the Olympics you race one day and then you have 4 days, maybe 5 days, 6 days before you race again. So it's a different beast, and I think it needs to be sort of like approached a little bit differently, but it is always sort of funny. Like we steer our own ships in terms of nutrition, but we do get a lot of feedback from coaches and staff about how to do it properly. So it's sort of funny to try and walk that line between not changing, but also doing the best that you can for your body. So
yeah, it's a question that I really want to dive into further is the level of oversight. Mm-hmm. From my perspective, having learned more and more about Nordic skiing and alpine skiing, like there's a huge side of things. A huge portion of both of your teams are the tech side, how good are your skis waxed, how well are they maintained, and it seems short-sighted to have missed how much effort could be put into nutrition. Something that especially from the cycling side, only recently has become enormously important. So you kind of glossed over it, how little oversight there is. Like, is nutrition entirely on you?
I think I know for my team, we have resources that are like, a text or a call away. But it's definitely like, and I think on the alpine side, it's kind of like you can seek out the information you want. I think also like my experience over the last, 16, 17 years being on the US ski team, I've been able to dabble with like whether it's supplements or how you're actually fueling and kind of getting my method. But I do think for like younger athletes as they're coming on, I think they're trying to do more onboarding of just like general principles. And then like beyond that, we have our sports nutritionists that we can reach out to and consult with.
Do you ever do that?
Careful.
I think I try to do it whenever I have a question, but lately it hasn't been as much. I'm sure I still have some information that I could gain. But probably not as much as I guess there's probably a little bit that's missing.
I guess I'm curious, Ryan, like because I know cycling well, which like fueling has changed like the speed of the sport.
Yeah.
And I guess when I think about like an alpine race, like I said, it's 2 minutes. Like, I guess I ski. I'm like the guy who goes and gets French fries and a hot dog at the lodge. But like it is high performance, and I think that's like, maybe sports like cycling have kind of led the way of high performance nutrition. Like, what is your fueling strategy around an Olympic race? I mean, like because it is short, but it's so intense that you can't be on an empty stomach.
For that, it's like the race day. I'm just trying to fuel solid breakfast in the beginning of the morning just to make sure like energy reserves, and that obviously is like a combination of carbs and protein, like whatever, eggs, yogurt, granola, that type of thing. And then for the kind of building up to the race, like I'll always have, just like plugging in 2 packets of syrup into a bottle that I'll have. And then like kind of, especially getting close to the start, like I'll bring that, or if I need more, then I'll bring more. And just like kind of sipping it before I go to make sure that like carbs are kind of like, replenished or ready to go. And then over the 2 minutes, there's no refueling on the run, so just hoping you have enough. And I think on the backside too is like what I've learned the last couple of years too is like, especially when it comes to replenishing carbs, doing it as fast as possible is like really beneficial. So I'll do the same thing when I get to the finish, like 2 more packets into water, chug it, and then do like the protein side a little bit later with a protein shake.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what are the physiological demands of that 2-minute effort? Is it like a 2-minute sprint, or like what is that load?
It's like a slow build. I mean, I think it's like if you're trying to do a tolerance workout with biking, like cycling, because that's what we do a lot during the summer. And I mean, 30 seconds in, you're like breathing, but you're not feeling fatigue in any way. And then I would say probably about like a minute to a minute 30, you're probably feeling like, you know, a little bit more lactic acid. Like lactic acid is building up the entire time. And it totally depends on the course too. I mean, our longest course is Wengen, which is usually like 2:30 in terms of time. And that, you know, it's still a minute 30 when you start to feel your legs. You just have like less and less legs as you get down. Bormio is also a very fatiguing race, but it seems like it's a little, time-wise, a little bit shorter, so a little bit more manageable. And you're kind of like, for me, it's almost strategically being like knowing the sections on the hill where you can kind of like, instead of being super dynamic, actually kind of just like find your efficient place where you can stay steady and relax in a way, like, and then just trying to, you know, survive the last few turns. But you definitely, I mean, I think we're probably pushing lactates probably like, I don't push mine very high, but I'm sure some guys are like, you know, 10, 12, 14 millimoles at the end. So it's definitely, it's like a hard effort.
Wait, suppose your max heart rate is? Like, are you hitting your max, or are you like, humming along in a zone 4 the whole way down?
No, I would say closer to max.
Yeah.
You guys train with like heart rate, like in a training run?
Yeah, we have. It's funny. I like use one of the sensors for a while, and then I just was so over tracking everything, like tracking sleep, tracking workouts, all of that. And I was just like, I'm done. And
So done.
The band also got so smelly and sweaty, and I was just like, I'm over it. But it was tracking heart rates. But it's also like with skiing, I don't know. I could ski a whole run, and I'm like not thinking about. I feel like I've gotten to a point where I don't think about how tired I am or like how hard I'm breathing, how hard I'm working, because you're just so focused on the skiing.
Yeah.
This is a good position to be in.
Yeah.
You don't want to be,
No, exactly. And like, so I'm way easy. It's like way easier to get to my tolerance doing that versus sitting on a bike and doing a bike workout. Is like mentally such a harder effort, even though like physiologically it's the same.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. How hard are you breathing at the end of a 2:30?
Hard. I feel like it's like when you come to a stop, you're like kind of like catching your breath, and then you're taking a couple of steps. That's when you really know it's a fatiguing like downhill is when you're like stepping. And
You
you're
see
like,
them do the wobbly.
because your legs are just full of lactate. You know? It's the
that
same
makes
as-
sense.
Yeah.
It's honestly similar to like one aspect of what I do is the qualifying for the sprint races is like usually a 2:30 to 3-minute effort. When you described how the sensation builds, it sounded very similar. Like I feel like you got the nerves, you know, you got the race energy, and you can get through the first, you know, minute like almost for free, you know, and then after that it builds, and then the last 30 seconds is like total survival mode.
Yeah.
And I've found that with sprinting, you know, the way that it works for us is, you know, we do the qualifier, and then there's like a 2-hour break, and then we do the heats, which, you know, the quarterfinal, semifinal, final have a shorter and shorter breaks between them. Whereas like, so if you go semifinal to final, it can be a 4 or 5 minute break. So the fueling is a really interesting challenge within that, because after the qualifier you get done, and you know you're not trying to think about being tired. You know, you don't allow yourself to relax. So it's not a moment where you feel like you want like replenishing food. You know, I'm more inclined to go for like the quick digesting gel side of things. But I've found a ton of success with going for like something more substantial, like a waffle or something, PB&J, something like that during that 2-hour window. And then in the shorter windows, because you have a chance to like really make some recovery gains, even just in that window if you eat it quick enough. Which I'm sure applies to alpine too. You're never up against the time.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a second run.
So that's it. Yeah, with
Right.
GS, and GS is actually like, I haven't raced it in a while, but when I was racing it, I would say that's honestly might be the most physically demanding because it's more dynamic skiing.
Yeah.
Like your run lengths are between a minute 15, minute 30 maybe, so a little bit shorter, but you're doing like way more active turns and the forces you're kind of dealing with. And then again, it's 2 runs. So you have, from, it always depends when you start first run and when you're starting second run, but it'd be anywhere from an hour between runs to 3 hours between runs.
Totally.
So that time, I think athletes, it's like trying to figure out how do you, optimize that.
Yeah.
So you potentially do a run, but you don't necessarily know when your next run is.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like in cycling, like fueling is so dialed now. When like I eat this much, every hour I eat like whatever you eat 3 hours before to like finish and be like, do I have a sandwich or do I go in 10 minutes and I just have a gel? Like there is that like variation of time between.
It's not. Yeah, I would say the variation probably isn't as significant as an hour to 3. It's like if you're starting in the top 7, you're probably also going to be finishing the run top 7. So then your window is going to be the greatest between those. Whereas if you're a guy that starts just outside of the 30. And you sneak into the second run, they also flip 30, so you're starting first for the second run. So
you short.
You just went, and then you inspect, and then you go. It's like a very quick turnaround.
Yeah.
So
that happens in cross-country skiing. It's so much easier to be better.
It's so beneficial.
You get way more rest. If you like start late in the qualifier, and then get put into semi or quarterfinal number 1, like your break is probably close to half of what it could be for someone who starts early and then starts late.
Do you? With like, I'm curious, because I do feel like cycling is such a, I mean, it seems like there's so much money and like all the sports science involved with it is like so massive. With Nordic, I always assume that it's like similar, but do you feel like there is, or at least, I don't know, information that's to be gained that you're kind of always like taking things from cycling or from like?
Yeah, I mean, we look to the cycling world for sure for the like science side of nutrition and training, honestly. Yeah. I mean, you guys train a lot differently than we do, but there's 2 options. We can look to running and we can look to cycling, and cyclists train a lot more similar to how we're used to than runners, just in terms of the volume and the intensities. So we do look to cycling a lot to like for nutritional ideas, but then again, it's also very different. I mean, and it's funny, like cross-country skiing doesn't have a crazy amount of, again, when compared to cycling, of like science that's based right around it. And I think there's a lot of reasons for that. One, it's a tiny sport comparatively, so obviously there's that. And then also, people just are really inclined to take an old school approach to cross-country skiing, and there's now starting to be more and more people taking more of a scientific approach to training, and and I think that that's good in many ways. From a nutritional standpoint, I think it's nothing but positive. From a training science standpoint, I think it has its negatives. Yeah. As I'm sure you've seen in cycling, like we've got all these trends, heat adaptation training, which I'm sure you cyclists are on, and I don't know, altitude masks, which are incredibly dangerous in my opinion, and like all this stuff that people like just get a taste of the training benefit and then they just go gung-ho on it without really understanding what it does. So I don't know, but from a nutrition standpoint, the more research I think that happens and the more people really like try and track the gains, I think it's better. And people are doing a lot more of the high carb training. Within the racing landscape, it's a little bit different because people have different tolerances with their stomach and everything else. So you see people doing all kinds of different things. The big teams definitely do a lot of like strategic fueling, where it's like every single Swede that qualifies in a sprint is drinking this thing. I don't know what it is, but I see it. They leave the trash all over the place. They all are doing it, and we, that's one side, and then we are kind of like all doing something different. So I think there's a sweet spot in there somewhere.
I remember, I think it was late 20-teens is as I was exiting the World Tour, and there was the rumor that Visma and whatever Sky was called at that point was they're finishing every interval and doing a gel, and that's why they're faster. And you're like your eyes just roll and think that's the silliest thing I've ever heard. And there was always like, okay, well, maybe they're doing that, but what else? And okay, there is the what else is going on, and as a fan of the sport, you have to sort of have the suspension of disbelief. And over time, nutrition has just absolutely risen to the forefront. So I feel like there's an inevitability to chase what other people are doing, and that's why, like you're saying, do the mask, do the heat. Like if everybody's doing it, I need to do it. You feel you're at a disadvantage if you don't.
Yeah.
you were talking about the Swedes, like, is that, the question was going to be, who is leading the way? Is it coming out of Scandinavia?
I think it's coming out of Scandinavia.
Yeah.
I think the Central Europeans are doing more than we realize, but I think the Scandinavians are a little bit more like open book with it. We have a lot more Scandinavian crossover within like collegiate racing, so we learn a little bit about what they're doing that way. But I think, yeah, Norway and Sweden are leading it, especially from a training science side, and then I think nutrition side probably as well. But again, it's just not quite as like visible. You know, I think a lot of it sort of happens quietly. So like if we had Johannes Klevo here and he was going to be an open book, which isn't a guarantee, I think I'd learn a lot about what they're doing. And I think he probably would be unimpressed with what we're doing. Which is not to say, but then again, like you say, when your competitor does one thing, you feel the desire to do that thing. And I, as an athlete, really try and push back on that. Because I don't think that's how you get better. I think that like chasing that thing, going down every rabbit hole, I think is really unproductive as an athlete. And I've seen a lot of my colleagues who are inclined to do that really lose sight of the thing, right?
They're tried and true.
Right? Because think about it. If being the best version of yourself is this scale, you got training well gets you all the way to here. And then nutrition gets you most of the way to the end. And then you got heat training and freaking altitude training and the mask simulation and all this garbage that gets you 1%, bicarb, whatever it is. Broccoli. Have you ever heard of this broccoli thing?
Yeah.
Broccoli's in there. this like dumb inhaler that it's a tiny sliver and people forget that.
Yeah.
People think that all that stuff is going to get them here.
Yeah.
And then they forget to train well and listen to their body and rest well.
Yeah.
And so that's why I don't try and be a non-believer in science, but I try and be skeptical because I don't want to rely on these things.
Well, people try to find these like shortcuts.
Exactly.
You know, and it's like, and I think that is the thing with performance sport is like putting in the work is 95% of it. I mean, everything else makes a difference.
Totally.
I mean, I think it's funny, like when we kind of are like evolving as athletes that we're like almost like going back in time to like the basics. Like, I mean, Ted and I both came through an era of cycling that like low carb training was like the thing. Like I would do I'd like wake up, have 2 eggs, go do 6 hours, have like a whey protein gel after like 2 hours, get home and like you could do it.
Yeah.
But I think there's also this weird notion maybe in our era that like the more fatigued you felt, the better it was. Like you finish like, oh, I am so
well, what's the book? No pain, no gain.
Training.
You know?
Which,
for sure. Which is
crazy, you know, because you're speaking about, you know, Visma or Sky taking gels after, and I went and did some intervals yesterday, and you know, it was like 3 by 10 minutes, and I took a gel after every one, and I rode for an hour and 45 minutes and had 4 gels, which you know, 10 years ago when I was racing at a much higher level, I wouldn't have even brought a banana or something.
Totally.
But it's like you feel better in the workout, you like your power, you know, stays consistent across the efforts, and you get home and you also feel better.
Yes.
Which like in a way you're like, it almost is like counterintuitive because like, oh, I should feel more tired after that. But because I fueled the workout properly and recovered properly, then the next day you're able to go out and like repeat that effort.
I feel like that's such a thing with sport too, is like as an athlete, you only know how hard you're working, but you feel like you have to be working even harder. So then you're like, oh, I have to be grinding harder. I have to be like doing more and all these things. But there is like, it's such an optimal, like it's like a U-shaped curve, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a point where doing more is worse for you.
Yeah.
And it's like kind of that same method of like, you could actually just be doing better.
Right, you do the same thing but better.
Yeah.
If you train a year and have the success that you have, and then you do the exact same thing but better and easier, you're going to be faster. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing what people forget. And I really, to like build upon what I was saying before, I think that the best way to learn about, from my perspective, is to just go out and try it. Exactly what you're saying. And I've found, you know, with the fueling and consuming gels after every interval and all that stuff, it's just astonishing how much better it makes you feel.
Yeah.
I mean, it's absolutely astonishing.
Yeah.
When I think about how I used to train and I used to get home from a long session, just like, you know, ravenous.
Yeah.
So hungry, it was like a problem.
Yeah.
And then if you can just avoid that, you know, consume enough during the train, it makes you feel so much better and you recover so much faster.
Yeah.
It's really, really crazy. And I feel like that's been a huge area where I've gotten better in my like post-college years. So yeah, to build on my skepticism of training trends, this is one the fueling side is one that I'm not all that skeptical of. It's really like an absolute game changer. And I think that there's a reason why it's taken the cycling world so aggressively.
I feel like a lot of nutrition, the antiquated side of nutrition is hinges around weight. You know, cycling is like the leaner you are, the better you are, and that was the thought process for a century. We've learned that fueling has become wildly important. We certainly live in a sport where strength to weight ratio is hugely important. I'm curious where strength to weight ratio plays in either of your sports. How much is in Nordic and how much is like you want to be big to a degree?
Yeah.
Start here.
Okay, yeah. It's interesting because we don't know everyone's like strength numbers. I feel like we'll see, what people are like lifting on Instagram, which is always like
Fake weights.
I don't think they're fake, but I do think it's like you need to have a certain strength, and then obviously too, like the bigger you are. I always think about like Dominic Paris, who, he is just like a massive man, and how beneficial that is, especially like it's a gravity sport. So once you're up to speed, like that momentum helps you, right? As long as you're like also, your drag is still efficient, right? Mm-hmm. If you're a big guy going down, you might not be as fast. But if you're that big and strong enough to withhold that, I think it all is totally beneficial. And it's like, I always say, like, gravity sport. I can eat whatever I want. Like I try to like eat when I'm hungry, eat as much as I can, because I know that like the bigger I am, obviously to a point, like the more beneficial it is, and I don't have to worry so much about that, like that efficiency of my body specifically.
So do you track weight, or is it more like how the belt fits?
How tight the clothes are getting.
Yeah.
No, I will step on a scale, every couple of weeks, kind of just see where I'm at.
Yeah.
But it's not. I'm also not. I think I'm in a point where like my frame, I'm like a little bit under 6'1", like just over 6 foot, and if I'm between probably 210 to like 215 pounds, that weight, just based on how I feel, like how I move explosive wise, I feel like is a good range. Mm-hmm. Beyond that, I feel like I get a little sluggish, and then less than that, I feel like I'm just actually not like carrying speed the same. And it might be totally mental, but I think also the transition of carrying like more lean mass versus like fatty mass, like through the summer trying to build strength and stay in that weight range, but then trim some fat, gain some muscle.
Yeah. How about strength to weight in Nordic?
Yeah, I think it's important, but nobody that I know tracks their weight. I've probably weighed myself outside of a doctor's office setting like less than 10 times in my entire life. And,
really? Even in Nordic skiing?
Yeah. I don't really, I really have no interest in it. And I also take the approach that Ryan takes of like, I eat as much as I can all the time, no matter what.
Are you the outlier or are you the norm among Nordic skiers?
I think that's the norm among the Nordic skiers that I've known.
Yeah.
I think that, in Nordic skiing, this is getting pretty highly off topic and may need to be edited out, but there's eating disorders are a huge problem in cross-country skiing and a huge problem in running.
Well, that's why I asked, why is it not important if it is such an issue in Nordic skiing?
Well, it is, but I think that like tracking your weight, you will find that there's a correlation, and you don't want to ever chase that correlation down, because that is so bad for you. And it's not on the men's side. It's pretty favorable to be strong. And the strength to weight, like in terms of winning races, is a little bit different than on the women's side. So it's a little bit more common on the women's side to sort of like chase the that thing down a dangerous path. But like I would never, like in a public setting, I would never recommend that a young athlete track their weight. It's just like, it's too dangerous. It really is, and it's just not worth it. Like I've known athletes who have sort of struggled with eating enough and struggled with like tracking their weight, and it'll sideline you for years, and it will change the trajectory of your entire life. So it's really like, in my opinion, just not a place that's worth going, which is interesting because I know that cyclists do it. I wonder how that works.
Yeah, I feel really like less so now. I guess I'm racing at a different level, but I don't like weigh myself now. I think just because fueling is, I mean, I also had this I'm coaching an individual and I had this realization, he's like concerned about his weight.
Yeah.
But there's also this correlation, like the more you eat, the more you can burn. You know, so it's
Yeah.
like sometimes like actually like eating more is actually allows you to ride further or harder or
Yeah.
exercise more. So it's actually like you end up at the same spot versus like cutting calories and riding 2 hours or eating calories and riding 4 hours.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I see this in the world to where like, yes, cyclists still compared to, you know, Nordic skiers or alpine skiers look scrawny, but in general, I would say the peloton looks healthier.
Yeah.
You know, like they're still lean, they're tiny guys or women, but like overall, I feel like there's a lot healthier looking individuals. You know, I guess I was at this like peak era of Sky when like you see, you know, like Skeletors. I was like, this is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
And I was there before, but like you said, it's such this fine line, and you know where I'm at now, like fueling properly, you feel so much better. You can ride so much
Yeah.
harder, and I
Oh,
think
yeah.
it's also this case where like if you can do more power, you can also weigh more. So I think like being
Yeah.
strong and robust, and also just injury, like
Yeah.
sickness is it, you know, it all
Yeah.
adds up.
I think we have the distinct advantage of being a full body sport,
Yes.
where like, you know, you guys, as far as I can tell, you know, from here up,
It's not much.
what are you doing?
No,
You gotta hold yourself up on the handlebars, I guess.
Yeah.
But like, so for us, like, yeah, you have to be able to generate power
Yeah.
with your upper body and your lower body,
Yeah.
or else you'll have no chance.
Yeah.
So that helps with that side of things. I'm glad to hear in cycling that it's moving away from that.
Yeah. Well,
Because
people are still like weighing. I mean, I never got into like weighing my food to like cut calories, but now they're
Yeah.
weighing their food, like making sure they're eating enough.
Yeah.
You know, especially
I've
on a
never-
on a hard training day, it's like you need to actually make sure because cycling, you can do a 7,000 calorie bike ride.
yeah,
It's like
true.
that's a lot. Like it's hard
True.
to like conceptualize how much
Yeah.
food that is to
Yeah.
actually eat.
Yeah.
I've never known a Nordic skier to weigh their food
No.
ever. I mean, European or not,
Yeah.
and I really don't think any of them are. And everyone that I talk to, it's just like takes the approach that I take,
Yeah.
which is just like you just eat as much as you can,
More. Yeah.
absolutely all the time. And the most dangerous thing you can do as an athlete in cross country skiing is to not eat enough.
Yeah.
I think it's the most efficient way to just torpedo your
Yeah.
career.
How about, you were talking about, doing a 7,000 calorie ride. Obviously that's on the high end. There was the joke when Michael Phelps was racing, he'd be on the Today Show and he'd be like, he burns 14,000 calories. What does a really big day of training look like from a caloric standpoint for either of you?
I have no idea.
I have no idea.
Like, okay, so reverse engineering it. What is, if you do a big training day, are you exercising for 3 hours hard or
A
being
big
on the
train day.
glacier all day, you know?
Yeah.
I think a big train day for us would be, I mean, depending on how you categorize, like a big train day might include intervals, but I would say the biggest from a calorie and food consumption standpoint is probably like the in distance days. And, you know, a big day for us would be like 3-4 hours roller skiing in the morning and 2 hours, up to 2 hours running in the afternoon.
Dang.
Or maybe like a 6-7 hour individual session, you know.
Yeah.
That would be like a big day, the biggest day of the summer for like a top level
Yeah.
Nordic skier. We don't do stuff like that too routinely. I think an average big day within a normal training flow would be more on the lines of like maybe 3.5 hours in the morning and an hour to an hour and a half in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So that's a bit more standard, but it's not nothing, but we also don't do, I think cyclists often will just do one session.
Yeah, Nordic skiing like puzzles me. I was out in Bend where I grew up a couple years ago. My
Oh,
buddy
nice.
was coaching the team from Montana, and they went and skied the glaciers in the morning.
Yeah.
Did like, I don't know, 2-hour skis. Came to town, mountain biked, and then in the evening did a weight session.
Yeah.
And it was like, this was in May, and I'm like, your season is like not for so long. And like
Yeah.
I guess there's two sports that I find have the quantity of training compared to the distance of competition is just way. I mean, I guess maybe alpine as well because your events are so short. But your training, you could be doing 35-hour training weeks, yet your events are an hour at the most. And like cycling, like you think marathon runners aren't running
Yeah.
2 marathons to train for
Right. No.
marathon.
It is strange for
But
sure.
I mean, I guess my only like theory is that Nordic skiing and swimming are such technical
Swimming,
sports.
yeah.
Like they're technical. Like you have to have good technique, and so the repeat of like the technical side, you have to like just get the repetitions in.
Yeah, I think efficiency
Yeah.
drives that a lot. But then again, like, you know, unlike swimming, cross-country skiing, nobody can cross-country ski all year.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to sort of like develop the efficiency in these other modes, which roller skiing is a reasonable replica.
Yeah.
But roller skiing is actually a lot easier than
Yeah.
cross-country skiing. So like if we
Until you crash.
Get a
then
rock
it
stuck in your.
sucks. Yeah, get a rock stuck in your elbow. But if we lived in a world where we cross-country skied year-round in a cyclist comparison,
Yeah.
no Nordic skiers would train as much
Yeah.
as they do now. Because it's way more muscular, way more fatiguing
Yeah.
to cross-country ski versus roller ski.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to get back to the question with the perspective of nutrition
Yeah.
and what you're consuming over the course of that day. Talk about a big day of training.
Well, it's like, for alpine, I think it's split between what we do dry land versus what we do on snow, because skiing is like, it's such a hard, like what Ben's saying, to replicate that anywhere else. So like summer training, I mean, it'd probably be in the gym like 2.5 hours in the morning, then probably do like hour and a half bike ride or something in the afternoon, generally speaking. I feel like my training used to be like, 3.5 hours in the gym, like a grind, and then another like workout in the afternoon, biking or something. That was like, I feel like I just like fell off a cliff at the end of that whole program. So I'm kind of like trying to take it back a little. But versus when we're on snow, honestly, it's like not, I mean, I feel like my body just kind of like, I don't know, compresses so much over a training session that it's not like I could go take another run, but I feel I would be putting myself more at risk of like injury or crashing or that type of thing because I wouldn't like be making the right movements or whatever it be. So that'll be like, I was trying to think of like where the most fatiguing is. It might be in like, well, I guess Copper because of altitude. Portillo is really tiring too. And a lot of Portillos you're on like, we take a snowmobile up, take one lift ride, and we take a roca jack. So most of the time you're on your feet, and you'll take like 6 runs, probably a minute and a half of downhill, somewhere around there, like 6, 7 runs, and you definitely feel tired. But I think a lot of it's also altitude that you're limited by. Yeah. So it's like hard. And then we'll do dry land in the afternoon. Like the hardest days are the last day of a block when we have a day off the next day, because then you're doing your full session in the morning skiing, and then we do a full lift in the afternoon.
So this is going to go a little bit off topic, but I'm always fascinated by what you guys are doing in the non-competitive seasons. Like when you're training in Portillo, for example, you are skiing a course that you're never going to compete on in a World Cup. So like, are you honing technique? Are you testing skis? What all is going into that session?
Yeah, basically those two things. Like,
Good guess.
everywhere we like get kind of this like big, quantity or quiver, and we're trying to weed out the skis that we want to like keep for the season for either keeping as training skis or race skis. Like ideally figuring out which skis are going to be the race skis, and you usually need a good number of pair just so if a ski breaks or like the edges or whatever, having variability is always beneficial. And so that's what we're going through and trying to get probably like we'll have 3 pair out per athlete and then run 6 runs, so you get 2 runs of information for each. And then on the other side of that, also like I'm a huge rather than trying to find the things that like I can't control, I like to control or like think of the things that I can. So like technique, movement, those patterns, that's what I'm trying to like improve upon in those training sessions on snow. And I mean, it is something that I've kind of like realized as I've gotten older, we still keep going to the same places. So like the downhill track in Portillo is the same downhill track that I skied for the first time in 2013, 2016. And you do become limited by those venues because like the World Cup, every track is unique, and the more you ski on each track, the more beneficial it is. But I also think that the same thing kind of reverse applies with training, where if you're only training into track like Portillo all the time, you're going to stop being able to make that adaptation to the different tracks with different terrain. Yeah. So it's kind of like I don't know. I always think the more places we can go to that are new, the more beneficial it is, because you have to relearn how to ski something new, and like that, those kind of the knowledge you gain is translates better.
So then, from the perspective of nutrition, on these big training days, like, do you wake up on one of your 6-7 hour days, or even the night before, days before? How much is nutrition part of your thought process?
I mean, I think nowadays it's hugely part of it. Especially on, like, I didn't used to train days that big when I was younger and in in college up till around that time, like the biggest days maybe would be more on the 5-hour side of things, and you could get through that without like a catastrophe with poor planning in terms of nutrition. But nowadays, I think it's hugely important, and on those days I try to, like, especially on a double session type of day, just try and eat a big breakfast, really like a proper breakfast, and then be continually consuming throughout the session. Again, I don't take a super scientific approach to these things. I really just try and eat every 20, 30 minutes something, or have maple syrup in my water bottle, or so every sip I'm getting some carbs. And then just like make sure I'm never going for a spell without water or without carbs or something, and then also it can make, and then having a big lunch in the middle of the day is crucial as well, and it can make sort of that like afternoon session a little bit harder to get going, which is funny. You have a big lunch, especially when you're really hungry, and it sort of sends you into this like drowsy mode,
Ready for a nap.
Yeah, exactly. And then of course you have the opportunity to just relax for a few hours, but getting going again at that like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock session can be a little bit hard. And I've found that getting, consuming something then, especially something with a good amount of sugar, is a great way to just sort of get going again. And then the afternoon sessions, I think, are still an area where I could improve a lot, because the afternoon session, sort of the end is in sight, so you are tempted to be a little bit less organized. But in a training camp setting, I mean, that's the reality for me. But in a training camp setting, I definitely am always taking carbs in my water, and always bringing I like to bring the waffles. They just, to me, feel a little bit more like substantial. So I bring that on the afternoon, and then try and eat right after, and then get dinner pretty quick. There's pretty much no moment during the whole day where you're not thinking about eating.
Sounds great.
Which is a pretty good way to go. But I've just found that with those long sessions, like if I were to do a 6-hour run or something, like a properly long run, it's just astonishing how easy.
6-hour run sounds horrible.
It's astonishing how much better it makes it to be properly fueled.
Sure.
It just can't. It blows my mind to this day.
Yeah.
So when you're getting ready for your 6-hour run, what is a full day of training look like nutritionally? How much are you prioritizing? What do my whacks feel like versus what is my nutrition?
Well, I'm not doing anything with my skis. My technician's doing that, so a
You
lot
got
more
people
on
for
that.
that.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it
We've
is.
got
I think
people.
it's secondary, and I honestly think it could be thought about a lot more. And again, maybe that comes down to like us as athletes. Like, we're all independent with our team, but there's not like, it's like up to you to kind of like determine what's valuable. Whereas like this conversation, I mean, like right now, again, as big a breakfast as I can, knowing that I'm going to have to be skiing and moving around in the next like 30 minutes, because it's usually like we train really early. And then, so with that, protein, a little bit caffeine, and then get on the hill, and then like always, having my water bottle with syrup like ready to go throughout the training session. But I'm also kind of like, maybe I should actually be like increasing that a lot more between runs, trying to actually like replenish rather than like sustain. But and I know that other teammates, like they might just have their water bottle, like no electrolytes, and definitely not a whole lot of, especially at altitude. But then after, it's like, refueling with carbs. But then I also usually have a protein shake like every time I either finish a like ski session or also gym session too.
Yeah.
So I feel like when I'm working out, my idea is like have carbs to go with it, and then afterwards making sure I'm recovering with protein, but probably honestly needing to recover more with carbs and then protein rather than just like fully focused on protein.
Yeah. Are there alpiners that exist at your level who just like take, are just like ripping a hot dog at the lodge? And...
Oh yeah, you mean everyone?
Well, okay, I mean, I don't know, it's like...
Yeah, you should see, it's also funny, like especially Central Europe, like, especially Austria, how many guys will eat literally a hot dog before like they're racing Kitzbühel or whatever.
Really?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
And do you think...
But it's just food. Like it's like...
Do you think it affects them? Do you think they could stand to gain? Or do you think it is sort of...
I don't know. I don't think, like in my head, I don't think it would affect them that day. I think that...
Yeah.
Like literally in Garmisch, I was saying Kitzbühel, I don't think it's Kitzbühel, it's Garmisch. The hospitality is right by the downhill start, and all they have is pretzels and hot dogs, like either like real hot dogs or whatever, vice versa, whatever.
Yeah.
And like everyone, that's what they're consuming. Because you inspect the hill at 8 and then your run's at like noon. And so you have a good amount of time that you're like fueling. And so you kind of eat what you can see.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, but I think it might be more so the like, if you're doing that, every race weekend, like through different years, I feel like that's actually when it builds up rather than having like a professional, like having that mindset of fueling adequately. Like I think that's the thing that's most important, right?
Yeah.
And I remember I had a PT who we were kind of talking about that, and she's like helped out with, I don't know which team it is, but one of the cycling teams in Europe. And she was like, every time you're sweating, you should be refueling with carbs. Yeah. And that like got to me too, because like we'll inspect our course and we hike up and down and kind of look at the line and everything. And halfway through, you are like sweating, you're like ditching layers, but you don't think of it as a workout because it's like you're not actually skiing.
You're just walking,
but she was like, no, like that's like the time when you actually need to be refueling so that you're primed for the race run.
Right.
And I think those are like the habits that a lot of athletes, it's not going to make a difference right there, but the longevity and like that build up over time of not actually doing the proper way to refuel probably will make a big difference. Yeah. Because I think the biggest difference is made is in training and how do you optimize training. And if you're not like getting yourself to be as efficient or optimal as possible, you're not doing.
I mean, I think it comes back to what we were saying before, where it's like, you train, you can do the exact same thing one year, and then you do the exact same thing again the next year at a higher level, and where you recover better and you consume your better nutrition, you're going to be better. On the year level. Yeah. I totally agree. But I think that with the endurance sport, there's also a capacity to make for huge gains that day. Yeah. Which is what makes it, I think, really tempting because people like those short-term gains. Bicarb, man, it makes you faster that day.
Well, Ryan, I mean, Olympic Games, neither of us went to the Olympics.
0 times.
0 times. So 2 Olympians here, pretty cool. Yeah. But tell us about your day at the Olympics, because I mean, I think all of us being here in Vermont, like a small little state here, but an incredibly successful Winter Games. So like, walk us through the medal run.
I think I should first start with like whatever it was, 3 or 4 days prior was the Olympic downhill day when I woke up, started eating breakfast, stomach started feeling weird, and I was like, oh, that's not good. And then later on, like was going up for inspection, fully puked in the gondola, like spray painted the window. And then that whole day, I mean, like I raced, but was not 100% by any means. Went back to the room and was like, obviously defeated for not racing well, like losing that opportunity with the Olympic downhill in Bormio. But then also feeling just like totally gassed, like stomach was still weird, threw up again at the hotel. So like that and having to be like, all right, I got to like reset. I'm racing, again, I have one more opportunity. And so that whole time, just like, I mean, it's simple, right? Like refuel, electrolytes, hydrate. So that time, just a lot of syrup, a lot of maple aid, getting me through those days. So that by the time that I woke up for the Super G day, was feeling normal again, which was really beneficial. So I was able to kind of go through a normal race routine with that day. Went down, ate the same breakfast. Luckily, ate all of it, no stomach issues. And then go. It's like inspect, do your warm up runs. And then I go to hospitality for a little like cool down, get mentally prepared. And that during that time, always the 2 packets in the water bottle, consume that. And then going to the start, like just kind of making sure I finish that bottle, get fully replenished. And like, it's weird how in those moments, it's like a big deal, but it's still just like another moment in your life. And you're like still just processing it the same way you would any other race. There's like excitement and there's like a lot of buildup and a lot of things you don't know what's going to happen. And with that, you kind of have to just accept it. So that's like where I was at in the start and just, excited to be able to just go ski the Super G in Bormio. It's always fun.
Do you think, because you had the stomach issue, if any ways that made you like lock in more to focus on like the details for
Definitely, I would say,
because it's like all of a sudden it's like, this is it. There's not like 2 more opportunities.
Totally. For these Olympics, my best event for the last few years has been in downhill. Like I've had a few World Cup podiums. I haven't been on the podium since the last Olympics in Super G. And so I was like trying to put all my cards in one basket. And I mean, I qualified for essentially 3 events, but knowing that was going to be the best shot, I was like, and to go through it and just like totally underperform in my eyes, I was like, definitely a letdown. And then it definitely like reset me, being like, one, I just got to get myself back to like feel good again. And then with that, kind of taking that momentum and like really, yeah, like I skipped the second event, which would have been between the two, because I felt like I wasn't gonna be able to get there. But because of that, I was able to actually like train and get some like focus in on Super G and get a good feeling going. So I think that did kind of like help in a way. Yeah, and it's funny how it like all works out in the end.
Yeah.
I feel like that's an awesome message for like, younger athletes, because like the momentum is so true.
Yeah.
And even if you build the momentum starting from the very bottom,
Yeah.
you still have it, and you can take it right up past where you thought you thought you were.
Yeah.
I feel like we see it in cross-country skiing all the time, where it's like a setback can be productive because it gets you to just like, all right, dial in on the details.
Yeah.
And then just like you can carry it right up to levels that you maybe didn't even know. So that's really interesting to hear.
Well, even kind of your point, like doing the basics right. It's like for you, it's just like cool, just like get healthy, get hydrated, make sure I can just like get food in my. It's like just like do the basics first. Like it almost like ignore like because of that you're like not thinking about all the other distractions that you might be thinking about had you not had that experience.
Totally. Yeah, I love that.
What about you?
Yeah, I honestly echo a lot of what Ryan said. Where
Growing up in the gondola.
well, not that. No, but my day from the first race, the sprint side of things, it really. I mean, I was nervous. Woke up and just like had a normal breakfast, which is a little harder to get down than normal. But every moment looking back on it, I feel like I interpreted it as though it was just another race. There was no like, if I mess this up, then this huge opportunity is over. Even though, of course, the sprint was really my best chance at taking a medal, and I think that I felt like the momentum side of things as well sort of built throughout the day. And yeah, the qualifier was good for me. I knew it was a course that I'd raced a lot and I knew was quite good for me, but also a course that I've really struggled on tactics wise. Tactics for me are a hard thing to wrap my head around. I really like to just race hard. And this course required some like thought. You didn't want to be leading at the wrong place. So there was that, which was causing me some stress, and that was taking a lot of my attention off of sort of the bigger picture. It was like I was really honed in on what the move was going to be on the race course. So yeah, post qualifier, I also felt like I fueled better than I have at other championships, just because I wasn't interpreting it as this like one shot, one opportunity. So I ate a little bit more, and of course, we're at the Olympics, so I had more UnTapped available to me there than I do from because I brought up a whole bunch. You know what I mean? And I had my girlfriend's family bring a bunch and all this stuff. So I consumed a lot of calories, and then as the efforts unfolded in the heats, I was eating a lot as well there.
And how many, just to interrupt real quick, how many qualifiers are there to get through?
So there's one, so I did the qualifier, which is like an individual time trial, right, on the course, which is, I think it was like 2:45 or something, just under 3 minutes. And then, we had this break, and then after that, it was you go in groups of 6. So, and you have to be in the top 2 of your group of 6 to advance to the next round. And that's where the tactics come in. So, in the quarterfinal, I was like, I'm not taking, I knew I could beat the guys there, and I was like, I'm not messing around, wait until the end. So I really went for it early, which has been a move that I've done a lot, but has been costly to me because, you can win your quarterfinal by a mile and nobody cares.
Yeah.
You got to have energy for the final, right? So, and I've many, many times destroyed quarterfinals and then been dropped in the final, So with that, I went hard. I went very hard in the quarterfinals because I was like, I'm not going out in the quarterfinals of the Olympics, So and then I got done and I was like, okay, that went well, I whatever. But I got to make sure I don't pay the price here. So that was what got me on the fueling pretty hard in that break. And I also was in an early quarterfinal, which means I had a longer break before the semifinals. So I ate a bunch then, skied around, and then I went out for the semifinal. And in the semifinal, I started having my eye on the prize a little bit more. So I tried to be a little bit more tactical, which was almost hugely costly. I ended up third in my semifinal, but there's a thing called lucky loser. Yeah. Where if you're among the fastest of the people who get third, you can advance to the final. So I ended up being lucky loser by like a whisker. I got out lunged, so I was third by whatever a little bit. So that was a stressful moment, but I was I had the same thing happen in the last Olympics where I lucky losered into the semifinals. And at that Olympics, I was like packing my stuff up and getting out of there. And they were like, "Oh, you made it." And I was like, "Oh God," you know. So that was a moment. That was the thing I was really hoping to avoid. So I knew there was a chance I'd be lucky loser. I was eating, drinking, like as if I was going to the final. And then I found out I was going to the final, and I really like, you know, from a mental standpoint, more so than I ever have in my whole life. I was like, this is what I've dreamed of. This is like out roller skiing on a day like today, pouring rain, 50 degrees. What do? You think about being in the final of the Olympics, and you think about like what you do with that opportunity. And I was just like, I'm not letting it go. I'm not going down without a fight. And in the final, I like went right to the front, you know, side by side with Johannes Klebo, and I was like, all right, I'm just gonna, you know, it's 3 minutes. Like, how much can you suffer? And pretty quickly, it was just him and me and one other guy. And but then I was really the most proud of myself, I think, of the whole Olympics was in that moment. I was like, I'm beating that other guy, you know, and I'm going to try and stay with Johannes, you know, which obviously didn't happen. But the other guy like looked around at the top of the hill and was like, sweet,
Yeah.
bronze medal, take that. And like, you know, celebrated, was waving, going in. And I was like, crashing all the way over the line. Like I almost caught Klebo because he was celebrating.
Yeah.
And, you know, people will say, oh, Ben was silver medal by 0.8 seconds. And I'm like, that's a little misleading. A little misleading, you know. You had me beat outright, but I was just like, I'm not going to even think about this moment until it's over, you know, because I've been caught in the final 100 too many times. So that was something like in terms of a takeaway from the day. I mean, the fueling side of it, being more dialed than I probably have been on average was a good takeaway, but then also the mental side, just like never celebrating too soon, you know, and just like trying to stay engaged the whole time was a really fun takeaway.
Did you not ever feel like you're like, even though there's just the three of you guys like so far ahead that you're like, I'm gonna get a medal?
I was thinking about getting a medal.
Okay.
For sure. I was like, you know, I remember getting to the top of the hill and there was this like sketchy-ish downhill, and I was like, all right, if I can stay on my feet, if I can stay on my feet right now, like this goal, this lifelong goal is available to me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There was a I don't know, a disconnect where I didn't like let up, even though I knew it was like pretty well.
Yeah.
I'm talking sort of.
I feel like no, I know. I feel like
he
that's
could
like
still fall over.
Yeah, exactly. Or somebody.
Yeah, that's so
somebody
true.
can still be coming. You know, like they always do.
I feel like that's like a Vermont mentality of
Yeah.
like not like counting your chickens before they hatch type
Right.
situation. It's so interesting with like Nordic how you also immediately get to celebrate,
Yeah.
like knowing
True.
that you won a medal. Whereas I
Yeah.
was like, I ran 3, and then the top 10 guys still had to go. So I'm just like sitting there like waiting. I'm like, wonder if I'm gonna get 10th today.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, like,
What a build up.
yeah, you have to wait so long that you might win, you might get second, and then it's like you might not medal.
Mm-hmm.
You ride that wave for like
It's brutal.
45 minutes or something.
Yeah.
And then by the time it's like, okay, I think I'm going to get second. It's like, yeah, pretty well set. But you don't get that like cross the finish line and like celebrate.
Oh,
Which
and
is
that
interesting.
moment was just like unbelievable. I mean,
Yeah.
just the sensation.
Yeah.
I don't even know. People always ask me what it felt like, and I don't even really know. But I remember it was just like, it was insane. And I'm really thankful because you know we do individual starts as well.
Yeah.
And that happens. You know, you sit in the leader's chair and you're like, you know.
Yeah.
And it's a fun and exciting way to do well in a race for sure. But there is something just about that like intense
Yeah.
relief and you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about the span of time over the course of this particular Olympics, like to allow you to come back as the most successful American male Nordic skier? You came home with another medal. So yeah, how long was that period of time? How do you look at fueling? How do you look at recovery? Are you silently fist pumping? You're like, I've already done it.
Yeah. Well, so to continue upon the story, that was where the fueling and just the like energy management became a huge challenge. Like I got done with that race and, you know, oh my God, I like locked in for 6.5 hours of media. I mean, it was crazy. I finished the race at like noon and got home at, you know, 7:30.
Yeah.
And eating enough during that, drinking enough, because like you know, you're all like, you know? Matt Wickham was like trying to like give me stuff, and I was like, you know, it was just really hard to lock in for that. And then, you know, of course, afterward, you know, you want to go out and celebrate and everything else. And I really had my eye on that team sprint, you know, more than any before the Olympics started.
Which is how much later?
which was over a week later.
Oh, so you could have gone out and been fine.
Yeah, I totally could have, but I wasn't about to take that chance. So I definitely like, from a fueling standpoint, that was a big walk in, and I think that, I mean, having all this like, you know, sports oriented nutrition available for that moment was really important for me. You know, because there wasn't really like any food available. I would have maybe rather sit down for 30 minutes and have a, you know, pasta bolognese, but like it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So I pretty much just like hammered through my, you know, my reserves of UnTapped in the hours that followed, which in hindsight I'm really thankful for, because I think that's when you really kill your energy.
Yeah.
And then in the days afterward too, you know, making sure to train easy and not be just all excited all the time. And then again, as you say, with the next race, I think at first there was just a taste of that sort of like, I've already done it, so I don't need to worry about it as much. But then, you know, you throw the team event into the equation, and I had been, you know, rooming with my good friend of many, many years, Gus Schumacher, who had not had a successful Olympics. He really, really struggled in some events that he really was targeting. And, you know, we were negotiating that and talking about stuff. And I think being in that setting really helped sort of like put this individual sprint behind me and look towards the team sprint, because together we really rallied around that. You know, he didn't want to hear me talk about how good it felt to get a medal. And I didn't want to be that guy. Yeah. I wanted to support him in sort of a hard time as much as I could. And I think that rallying around the team sprint was how we did that. You know, every day, win or lose, it was like, dude, we're doing it in that team sprint. We are doing it in the team sprint. Like 100%, we're gonna go crazy. And as that that was easy for me to say, riding high. And as the team sprint got closer, it started to be like, oh God, you know, I gotta put my money where my mouth is here. And it became, a little stressful, and I was way more nervous for the team sprint than I was for the individual sprint. And that day, there was a lot less of the sort of, oh, it was just another race. It was like, no, you know, my guy is counting on me, and we have a huge opportunity here. And, you know, everybody's like, oh, you know, Ben did it once. It's not, curse is broken, whatever, you know? So it was stressful, but, I mean, Gus really, you know, you watch that race back, and Gus was just a hero. You know, I did my part, but my part was not what sealed the deal. It was really Gus, like, in his just like desire and abilities were unbelievable that day. So it was really cool. And then getting to sort of go through the whole cycle again with your buddy by your side was, so fun. And that was when I lost track of the feeling a little bit. Yeah. You know, because then I was like, the two big events are kind of behind me. So, you know, a couple beers here and there, a little champagne. And then, you know, less on the sports nutrition, you know, and then like 4 days later, I got sick. So, you know, it was one of those things where, looking back on it, God, I was thankful that I
like maintained
first one, because missing out on that team sprint opportunity would have been such a bummer. Yeah. And, you know, as a result of the illness, I didn't race the 50K, which was a bummer, you know, but more because that would have been a fun experience. I don't think I was going to go on the breakaway in that 50K. So anyhow, that was my Olympic story. Hopefully not too long-winded for our purposes, but.
When I got into cycling, when you got into cycling, the idea of doing 150 grams of carbs per hour is outlandish, right? And now fast forward a couple decades, we've been in the sport for a while, it's commonplace. And if you're not doing it, you're on your back foot. You hear stories of you know, professional football players and automotive racers who are prioritizing nutrition, and that's becoming more commonplace. Can you wager a guess how soon skiers are doing like a mandatory 100 grams per hour? Like,
I mean, I guess when I think about like alpine skiing, there is like a direct association between like adequate glucose carbohydrate like levels and also focus. I mean, I assume like, yes, there's a physical demand on your run, but there's also a psychological concentration and focus. I mean, I don't know. I would say like it's coming. I'm sure there's like countries that, because there is more crossover of sport now. You know, you look at a company like Red Bull that's like they're in a cycling team, they're in F1, they're in skiing. It's like slowly this like sports nutrition is going to bleed across. And there's a couple sports that are maybe like a little bit ahead. But I do think like in the next, probably by the next Olympics. I mean, we're having this conversation now, which you didn't have this before the Olympics this year. So like it just starts to like.
And do you think?
Crossbreed.
And that's like obviously more training with multiple runs stacked together is like the optimal. I mean, it's definitely interesting to think about that. And you think there's a major impact, like you're saying, with focus aside from muscular?
Yeah.
They say your brain rips through glucose.
Yeah,
Really?
chess players.
I mean,
like,
Video gamers?
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that's like one. I mean, on a bike ride, there's times when you like kind of bonk, and like the first thing that goes isn't your legs. It's like you start to get like dizzy, and you start to get like loopy.
That is so true.
And that's just like your brains doesn't have enough carbohydrates to like function and process. So I don't know. It's something to. I mean, you're here now. Maybe this is like you could be the person to bring this to alpine
just an
skiing.
insane amount of syrup. I'm gonna have to start traveling with like another duffel of syrup.
Yeah.
God, this is a little side note, but the UnTapped are such a godsend for traveling with maple syrup because every other canister is just such a liability.
Yeah.
The glass is obviously bad, but even though
the packets
even
are
the
just
plastic ones, anytime it's in a volume this big, it's just guaranteed spilling all over all the time.
Yeah.
Whereas the pouches are just like, they don't spill, which is nice. Basically, you can travel with a big quantity.
Yeah.
I mean, I see it's almost like an inertia thing. It's momentum, right? I mean, it's rare that as a human race, we try to like slow down in particular phases, and that's part of our beef with gravel, which is a different conversation. But I feel like there is an inevitability that in other sports that are chasing greatness, like you're going to do what other sports are leading the way. So, I mean, I can't imagine not seeing 150 grams of carbs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for
Or
CrossFit
certainly at least 120.
I think for CrossFit
per
skiing,
hour.
it's pretty much close to there now. And I think that there's a little bit less, like we've discussed, science and tracking, but I think it's there, and I think it's got room to grow and become more universal. I don't know exactly what all my competitors are doing, but I found that just increasing, to some percentage of 150 grams an hour has been hugely beneficial, and I guess there's no real reason why that doesn't just continue as you get up there. But I just think that the science side of things is what's lacking in skiing.
Yeah.
I see enormous potential right now to interject myself as like a Nordic ski coach.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a simple thing about how to coach intervals. We'll be like, use some intervals and make you
Drink this.
drink this.
Yeah, for sure. And a lot of ski coaches are old school, and it's coming from the athletes, I think, more than the coaches.
They're pushing, yeah.
Yeah, I think the athletes are the ones who are reading. This is a bit of an oversimplification, but the athletes are the ones that are listening to the cycling podcasts and sort of upping it. And I think the coaches are totally on board with it, but you don't get a lot of coaches who are like calling you on the radio saying like, "Go eat this."
Yeah, it's from the bottom up. Versus,
they're like, "Oh, yeah, like pack some stuff in your water belt."
Yeah.
And do the best that you can.
Yeah.
So I don't know, and I think when my generation becomes coaches, you might see that might be the moment where it really changes.
And the other thing when I think about just, I mean, how much, there's what, like you would drink this at Unbound, you would
Literally that much.
Oh yeah, this.
More.
Which is crazy. Like, you think about if you have this in your refrigerator, if you have maple syrup, you're like, oh, well, that's like a month of pancakes.
Yeah.
And I think that's for me when it does come to, I guess, how all four of us fuel is the quality of the ingredient. When you start getting these like huge volumes of carbohydrates, what you're eating actually makes a difference.
Yeah.
And if you're just like, I think for me, it's like, we know where this, like, there's a producer down the road from here who's like making this. And like, that's something so cool for me to like, something from my town, I'm like bringing around the world, and like,
you also know
it's so simple.
The process is so simple too. It's just getting rid of the water.
And it's delicious, but I think also like just the volumes in which cyclists at the moment are consuming this.
Yeah.
The quality of like, I mean, because you think about everything else, you're using the best ski wax, the best skis, you're eating well, you've got like all these other things to focus on, and then for some reason in sports nutrition, we've like defaulted to like crap ingredients. White powders.
I really agree. I think that I like to tell kids when I go to camps, like, part of what makes me proud to be the version of the athlete that I am is that I just consume food and race. I really, and whether or not that makes me the best version of myself or not, from a scientific standpoint, I don't know, but from a mental standpoint, it makes me feel really good. And like, even like you'll have athletes that have caffeine pills, right? And
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, I want to just drink coffee,
Yeah.
you know, and
As like natural as possible.
as natural as possible. And it's not to say it's not some like homeopathic remedy style thing. It just makes me feel good.
Yeah.
And I think that consuming syrup as a primary fuel for training and racing falls into that category really nicely.
Yeah.
Because it is just like, it's so unbelievably pure.
Yeah.
And I also like the fact that it's like it's got to be the easiest thing for your body to consume, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing there. It's just sugar.
Yeah.
So
You know.
simple to ingest, digest.
Yeah, it's so simple to digest.
Straight to muscles.
Yeah. I really like that aspect of it.
Well, I feel like there's also like I don't know, maybe it's just like a little hippie thing or something, but like because it's natural, I think your body recognizes that.
Yeah.
And like there's no like yesterday I was doing these intervals, came down the hill, took a gel, and I was like, damn, that is good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's like having kids. It's like I
Yeah.
give my kids, you know, we're in the car and they're fussy. I can give them a gel. I would never give them like another brand. Like I don't know what's in here. Like I'm not going to give my kid a gel, but like
Yeah.
I mean, I think about that. Like, what do I give my kids that I'm also consuming? I'm not going to give my kids.
Yeah.
I'm not going to consume something I wouldn't give my
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
That's a good way to do it.
you know, if you're willing to give it to your kids, it's good enough for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I agree.
Beautiful. Last minute lingering questions. I know we got places to go, but
I've got one question. What is your favorite UnTapped product?
Oh, well, I get asked that a lot, and I just have to go with the pure maple gel. Unfortunately, it's first in line. I get to say that. It's so good. I mean,
Yeah.
and plus, like, you know, you grow up in Vermont. Come on.
Yeah.
simple.
Like, it's just so good.
Ryan?
What the new cinnamon spice?
Yeah.
That one's my favorite.
Oh.
Salted cinnamon spice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is pretty
The
good.
salt aspect is good.
Yeah.
From a performance standpoint, but from a just taste standpoint, I'm sticking with mine. So.
All right.
Ian?
These were both my picks, but I also will say now that it's summer, I'm surprised that it's warmer. I'm really liking the mint.
Yeah.
Mm.
I like first started testing it more in the winter,
So
and like I feel like I also like having, for whatever reason, the summertime it just like goes down so easy.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's like because it's minty. It's like if I don't know, you feel like you're cooling off a bit as well.
Yeah.
I'm not as sticky when I take it.
You know the mint was grown on a Vermont farm?
Really?
Yeah, true story. We've run the spectrum. I often say it's the product I've had most recently, but strawberry dairy recovery, which is not the product I've had most recently, I think it's out of this world. So there we go. Guys, I am thrilled to have had this time together. I'm excited to do another one. I think we've just scratched the surface, but
I think so too. It's really fun.
it's been a blast. Thank you.
Next one in Arkansas?
Next one, we're going to Arkansas.
Yeah, seriously.
So it's the off season for those skiers, so they have sponsor obligations and various other things to attend to. Takeaways, what'd you glean there?
I mean, it's fascinating just to see other sports. You know, and I think both of these athletes have Olympic medals, which is neither something you and I don't have. You know, and I feel like we sometimes see cycling as a sport that's like maybe small in the grand scheme of sport, and yet to even see some of the, I don't say lack of knowledge, but just difference of perspective that their sport has even compared to where cycling is.
Yeah.
I feel like it makes me realize that there's so much improvement to be made in those disciplines. Because we're seeing this in cycling right now. There's just like this astronomical hockey stick of performance.
Right.
And maybe these other sports are like just at the cusp of that hockey stick.
Yeah, and you hear the conversation often from the perspective of running, you know, and runners are just now getting into nutrition. And so I think the intuition is to say, okay, well, obviously skiers would have the knowledge and support of their federation. Like USA Skiing is bigger than whatever the running component is, because runners are so individual. And so they're going to do the due diligence and figure out from maybe cycling. But it's funny to hear Ben especially say, yeah, cycling is so big and they're leading the way, because we often feel like we're in a small sport.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to me though, because you and I were both at points in our career where we were them. We were at the peak of your career. You're like, and now you look back now at what you know and you're like, I didn't know anything.
Right.
And I assume there's a lot of people who might watch this, or like kids who like assume that Ben and Ryan are like dialed. Everything is measured, everything's calculated, and then you actually are in that world and you realize that like things aren't left to chance, but there's still a lot of stones that have been unturned. And some of it's just talent. Some people they're so talented and so gifted that like they can get away with not being overly optimized. And I feel like I realized this very young in my cycling career, racing in the US as a junior and then going to Europe. Oftentimes like the average masters racer in the US is way more optimized than a world tour pro because they have time to like dive into all these little like avenues and where at the highest level things are unpredictable. You're constantly traveling, you're in different hotels, you're on different courses, you know, everything's just kind of more fluid. And the person who, you know, lives at the same house 365 days a year has a super clear schedule of what they can do in ways is almost more optimized than the pro. And I think what's happened in cycling is that people have been able to control the controllables. And it sounds like in the ski world, it's not yet quite, I mean, eating hot dogs before a run
Right, that's hilarious.
still seems a little bit, at the Olympics, you know, or something like it just seems still a little bit kind of trivial. Yeah.
Short-sighted,
Yeah.
And I do feel there's going to be a push. Like athletes aren't going to slow down. They're going to look for advantages wherever they can.
Yeah.
You know, Ben, I feel like especially had kind of a holistic approach, and he doesn't track his calories. And yeah, that does seem mind-bending.
Yeah.
As nutrition has become such a forefront.
Well, especially I think for me, in Ben's case, it surprises me because Nordic skiing is more so than cycling even, so physically demanding.
Sure.
You know, cardiovascular, like the rate at which they're burning is, I mean, if I went and did an hour threshold on the bike and he did an hour threshold ski,
Right.
he's going to burn way more calories than me. Like nutrition almost seems more important in Nordic skiing.
Agreed. Yes. The fact that he didn't know that he was going to do 150 grams of carbs after every session is wild through the Olympics. I mean, he obviously is a specimen. They both are. Both of them have 2 Olympic medals.
Yeah.
It is wild. How about I want to pick your brain a little bit more. You were in the World Tour longer than I. Were you beginning to see changes in the sport? I mean, especially from a nutritional standpoint. I mean,
No.
did you have okay? Well, in contrast, I raced for Liquigas, which is a very traditional Italian cycling team. We had a chef only at the Grand Tours, and we had as much pasta as you could possibly want to eat. And then in team training camps, you'd eat broccoli. You were with Sky for a while. At that point, or I shouldn't say at that point, how much was nutrition and having a team chef part of the routine while you were on Sky?
I think at the time, I think the team chef was more for food quality and hygiene and like staying healthy. Not healthy, like, but just like to not get food poisoning than it was for actual like making sure you're eating the right things.
Got it. Rather than eating off the race buffet.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and also just you could customize it a little bit more than you could a race buffet. But you know, we both kind of came up in this era of like low carb. You know, you're still eating carbohydrates, but just not in the quantities. Carbs weren't the most important part of the meal. It was like protein and, you know, eating your vegetables and all that, which is important. But now you look at a plate, it's like, you know, every rider is starting off with a plate of pasta or rice or, you know, whatever kind of staple of carb and then building a meal around that. Ours was almost more like the protein was the center and then you'd build the accessories on the side. I mean, I think it's really come in the last, you know, I don't know, even 5 years, just with the, you know, it started in the World Tour, but it's slowly come to, you know, we were both just at Unbound not too long ago, and everyone there is, their nutrition is like very focused.
Absolutely. Yeah, there was a lot that went under the microscope during COVID.
Yeah.
Athletes trying to excel, athletes trying to supersede their peers. And nutrition seems to, at that point, have really risen to the top. So, call it the past 6 years.
I mean, it's crazy for me to think that when I look back at my whole World Tour racing days, I don't know if I mean, maybe I took 10 gels in training over the course of my road cycling career. Just a gel wasn't it was a very specific product that you took in a race.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just something that like you had to take a gel, like, oh, I got to take a gel. And now, I mean, partially thanks to UnTapped, like just the flavor of it, and like the holistic kind of like approach of what it is, that's pretty much all I fuel with on a bike.
Yeah.
You know, even if I'm on an easy day, I'll take 2 gels and, you know, throw some Maple Aid in my bottle, and like, which is crazy for me, like go back and think of that pro racing days when like you'd stop in Italy and get a panini, or you go to a bakery and like, but you didn't eat race food while riding other than racing. And now like you're kind of always eating high performance food in training. Also one just to train yourself, but it's convenient.
Right.
You know, I mean, I can take a bunch of gels and go do some hard effort. If I take a big caprese sandwich, I'm not going to be doing any efforts for a while. When you think about where cycling is today, you know, there's so much information, so much discussion around nutrition in the sport of cycling that the average rider, whether it's an Unbound or a Criterium, is in ways like more aware of nutrition than to Olympians, which is kind of puzzling. You know, it's become such a staple of cycling, and even, you know, with some of the people I, you know, coach or people I speak to, there's always comments, whether it's, you know, whatever platform I'm coaching them on, or sometimes even just messaging people on, you know, Instagram. Mm-hmm. It's like, if you fuel enough, you can do it. Mm-hmm. You know, like, of course you need to train, you need to like actually like do some of the volume, but if you can continually fuel and like your stomach can handle it, like you can kind of do anything on the bike, at least. You know, it is unique in the sense that there's not much GI distress like running, but it puzzles me that, you know, we've kind of just realized this.
Well, yeah, and it has happened so recently, because backtrack 10 years, it wasn't part of our vernacular. It was totally an afterthought.
Yeah.
You wouldn't put a gel in your pocket. I mean, honestly, that's sort of the genesis of UnTapped, is going to races, being gifted maple syrup, realizing that I didn't want to go for a training ride with a novelty thing of glass maple syrup in my jersey pocket, but like, hey, how can we put that into a packet? And having it as something that I'd want to consume, because I didn't want to eat gels, but maple syrup always had this sort of gravitational.
Isn't that funny how you would never just like take a gel, you know, from a different brand that's like as a something that was like tasty, or like,
right.
You know, it's like it's very cognizant. Okay, this is like performance. I got to take this.
Yeah.
Where like I said, I'll take untapped gels in my pocket all the time. I don't question that I'm taking a gel.
Yes.
You know, I'm not thinking like, you know, whether I'm doing intervals or just on an endurance ride, I'll just like hammer gels. Or like, I guess I've really gotten into the flask.
Yeah.
You know, so I'll fill up
Sure.
big ride, 2 flasks, and just like hammer that. And I don't have this association of like the old days when it's like, oh, why would I be taking a gel on a training ride?
Right. And there's like the mental boost too, which is a whole different conversation in performance sports. But like, you look forward to it. It tastes good. You want it.
So excited.
It works.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, sort of.
Yeah.
Well, this entire conversation with these two gentlemen, with yourself, was precipitated by a conversation we had about, how can we keep on funneling maple syrup down our throats? So I'm over the moon that you opened up your barn to us. I'm glad we're not outside trying to have this conversation.
Yeah. A little wet.
Thank you for being an athlete, being a friend, being a fan of the product. Appreciate it, Ian.
Yeah. A true believer.
Yes, sir.